You're a failure.
And that's okay. Hi, I'm Dan.
And I'm Alicia. And we're
failures
too.
We take a walk back through people's failures and relive the mistakes they made so we all can have more clarity in how to be a better human. Today's episode explores a familiar theme on the 2020 perspective, being fired from a dream job. This individual, though, cited that his termination was one of the best things that has ever happened to him. James Hayden is a writer, HLA technologist, and PWS from the New Orleans area. He has guest lectured at several universities across the country and is presented at both national and international conferences. His work has been published by the Mighty, the Stuttering Foundation of America, Stamma, MSN, and his book, Dear World, I Stutter, a series of open letters from a person who stutters, can be found at most online retailers. In our conversation, James details his journey from dream job to spiraling depression until he finally addresses the elephant in the room and discovers that this elephant can bust a way out.
Welcome to the 2020 perspective, James Hayden.
Thank you for having me, guys. Looking forward to this. I've done a lot of podcasts over the past 3 years or so about all of my successes. And I use the word successes in quotes. But this is the first time that I'll be talking about my failures, my pretty epic failures, and how those failures led to my successes. But before we go more into it, I just want to disclose to the audience that I am a person that stutters. So if you hear a moment of repetition like this or moments of silence, I'm in the middle of a stuttering moment. There's nothing to worry about. Your audio is good. It's me. So I just want to get that out there before we dive into this.
Excellent.
Love that.
Awesome.
Thanks, James.
Thank you.
I'm really excited that you're going to share this story. It's kind of a fresh wound that you're totally just dissolving here and being open and vulnerable. So we get to be kind of on the front end of listening. But I wanted to just tell everyone, and Dan, how we know each other. And so James and I met, I guess it was 3 years ago, 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
Okay, well, the last year feels like it's been 5. So
true. Yes, that's understandable.
On our math.
So, 2 years ago, we worked together at Ochsner Health System. That's where I was before I moved to Dallas. And I was emceeing the TEDx event there, and James was one of the speakers. So we got to get to know each other, and I got to hear more about his story. That's not the story that he's going to be telling us today. But we got to have like a really cool, fun first experience of being part of that TEDx crew in New Orleans. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was.
Cool.
It was definitely something that I've been talking a lot about for the past couple of years, but we're going to lead to, today we're talking about the stuff that led up, to that moment. Typically when I talk to people about this, I give them the Disney version of what happened. But today we're going behind the curtain.
Ooh.
And we're going to talk about what actually happened.
Okay, well, let's crack this nut open.
Let's do it.
Where do we start?
Let's do it.
So we can begin like so many stories do, with like everything was going well. I graduated college in 2015, and then 4 months later I landed a job that was one step below my dream job at my dream company. I use the word dream in quotes because at the time it was my dream, but it no longer is. And it took me to failing to realize what my dreams, truly are. And I realized how lucky I am to get a job in my field 4 months after graduation, how unheard of that is. Very aware.
So what was this job? Can you give us just like a quick little synopsis?
I was a forensic scientist.
Forensic scientist. So did you go to crime scenes or?
No, I did not. I worked in the lab in the DNA unit.
You were Dexter?
Sure, I don't watch any of those shows.
Oh, okay. All right. The blood spatter analyst. Oh,
Like what, like perception, like TV is way over here, reality is way on the opposite end.
well, hopefully you weren't also a psychopath killer. But anyway,
No,
so
no, I'm not. I'm
Right. I
not.
was
Dream
going to say
job.
that's a big factor in the show, which James is
Yes.
not.
So I was doing that for a year, and things were going good. And then I remember waking up on, it was my 1 year anniversary, and realizing if I'm here for the rest of my life, something went, terribly wrong.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wait, what? Okay. Wait. You woke up and you're like, something's really wrong. Did you go to bed thinking it was wrong, or was it just really bad dreams, or what happened?
Oh, I don't remember. I just remember waking up feeling like something's off here. And it's weird because that was in September of 2016. In June of 2016, 3 months prior, I bought a house in the area because I thought I would be there long term.
Wow.
I'm not. I'm back in New Orleans. And 2 months after that, said house, flooded. Got about 4.5 feet of water. So my personal life was a wreck. Was a complete wreck, and my professional life wasn't that much better. But I still clung on to hope, even though I think deep, deep, deep down, I knew it wasn't going to happen. That once I get the next step, then things would be fine. I would be happy. So in fall of 2016, I clung on to that hope that things would be better. Things didn't get better at all. And it was Valentine's Day of 2017 when I was told by my boss in so many words, you're not moving up. If you leave, we don't blame you. Just give us your 2 weeks notice. So here I am, 24, a year and a half into my dream job, into my dream career at my dream company, and told I can't do it. The thing I've been wanting to do since I was sophomore, junior in high school, and I couldn't do it.
Wow.
So now what?
I am so interested in this, like this change overnight, and then there's this purgatory in between, which you woke up and said something's wrong, to Valentine's Day when they said, yeah, something's wrong and maybe you should think about leaving. Like what's happening there? What are you feeling? What are you seeing?
So during that entire 6 months of fall, winter of 16 and into early 17, I was at rock bottom. I call it my quarter life crisis. And I was just not in a good place, but I was not in a good place professionally, and I was not in a good place in my personal life. And so like nothing was really going on in my life, but I pretended to be okay because I was afraid of failing the perception of me. Because on like Facebook and social media and whatnot, I had it all. I had a house at the age of 23. I got flooded, but I was telling people, oh, it's life. It's okay. I'm fine. I wasn't fine whatsoever. And I landed a job that was one step below my dream job at my dream company 4 months out of college. Like I had it all at the age of 23, except for happiness. Trying to like deep down cling on to hope that things would get better. And then they didn't get better. And so it was, okay, now what are we going to do about this?
So I am curious, I think Dan alluded to this earlier, this feeling that morning that your 1 year anniversary, when you woke up and you're like, oh, the dreaded, pit in your stomach. And you're like, if this is my life for the next, working years, like 50 years, then I'm going to be miserable. Right.
Yeah.
How did you not have were there any red flags or any other feelings like in your gut that this was not the place for you? Or were you just like trucking along and then one day you're like, you know what? I actually don't really like this as much as I thought.
I think it was more of the second one. And looking back, I realized I had my blinders on big time and was seeing everything, through rose-colored glasses, which was definitely playing a part into it. But yeah, it was the second option. Like I was feeling okay, was kind of struggling because I'd been doing the same thing every day for a year, but I thought there's a light at the end of this tunnel. I'll be moving up soon and I can do what I've been wanting to do since I was a junior in like high school.
Mhm.
And I think it was just literally happened overnight when I woke up and I realized this ain't it.
What were some of the things that now you say I had blinders on from? What were some of those things that you maybe didn't recognize in the moment?
I think a lot of like internal politics and how I didn't fit into into all of that, kind of like how training was. And they hired a lot of, new people that had the same degree as me, but I had been there longer and they were being hired for a step above me. So like that was kind of it. And I just want to like
Mhm.
disclose like the place I worked at, good people doing great work.
Mhm.
Like it just didn't work out for me. I want to like put that up front. Like
Yeah.
I'm not bashing my old place. It wasn't a good fit for me. They do a lot of work, a lot of incredible work. It just wasn't a good fit for me. Want to get
Mhm.
that out there.
Yeah. We hear
So
you.
so you went through this kind of like in between putting on a front, but internally just kind of barely coping. Like what helped you persevere through those days and like bad day to bad day during that in between time before Valentine's Day? I mean, how did you take care of yourself? How did you soldier on?
I really didn't. I was 23 and at that time I was wanted to put on this brave face. I didn't want to talk to anyone about it. I talked to my parents and like one of my best friends, but my other friends didn't really know. Like I went to my friend's bachelor party. I went to like a friend's wedding. Like I put on this face of being okay. And people in my life knew I wasn't doing well, but a lot of people didn't know just how bad it actually
Mm-hmm.
was. I just put
Mhm.
on this front of I'm okay, and I just buried everything.
I mean, so when you get home at the end of the wedding and such, and you take your face off, I mean, what do you do to kind of be okay? Like, do you do some kind of self-care, or did you start exercising or like eating junk food, or like what was your coping mechanism? Because I feel like everyone has to turn to something.
A TV,
TV.
yeah, just
Mhm.
watch TV, or like get lost in a book.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
But yeah, those are my coping mechanisms. I didn't talk about it with anyone, and I should have. I should have because I harbored it too long. That in like November, late October, early November, I blew up at a coworker because I'd been harboring stuff for 3 months, and it was just the one comment on a bad day, and it was just all came out, and I'm still not proud of that moment. 4 years later,
Mhm.
almost 4 years later, no, not
Mhm.
proud of that whatsoever.
Yeah. That's what happens. I mean, we've all
Yeah.
been there when you don't have an outlet, I think, for managing the negative thoughts and
Mhm.
emotions. I mean, this is, what everyone does. I think that you can't necessarily get rid of your feelings associated with this like negative thing, but you can try to manage them in a way so you deal with it or get through it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it totally makes sense. That's why you're on the podcast,
Yeah.
It's
because
part
we
of the
learn from our
long-term
failures.
catharsis.
That's why we're here. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
Valentine's Day comes, then what?
So Valentine's Day comes. I take the next day off just because I was pissed, like not gonna lie.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to process because I knew if I didn't take that day off, I would say something stupid to someone. And
Mhm.
I didn't want to
Mm.
do something or say something that I would regret.
Yeah.
So I took that day off and then I went to work. I think Valentine's Day was on a Monday, let's say Monday,
Okay.
Tuesday.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
And then I took the day off. And then on that Friday, I spoke with my supervisor of like, hey, like, what's up? And we had an honest conversation. She just like kind of reiterated, like, yeah, this is it. Um, we don't blame you if you want to look elsewhere, just give us your 2 weeks. And so I was trying to figure, okay, now what am I going to do? Now what?
Yeah.
But now,
When she was giving you, he or she giving you feedback, like this isn't working out, were you hearing this and at the moment saying how, like asking yourself, okay, how could this be true? Or were you like, okay, yes, maybe I didn't like think about that. Basically, was it resonating with you, or was it just all like out of left field and you're like, what the heck where is this coming from?
a little column A and a little column B.
Mm.
So like some of the stuff to a degree was valid. However, like one of like the big things was I had started like training in a different section, and maybe like a week or two prior, they completely redid that entire section. So the regulars were learning it as well. And I started training on a Monday, and by Friday I had to be competent in it. Like that's just no.
No. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's not how mastery works.
No.
Yeah.
And so like that was it. And some other nonsense that I really didn't agree with. I'm just like, no, whatever. I'll bite my tongue and just figure out what's next, because I didn't want to say something that would immediately jeopardize my job. I wanted to have something before I left, and that didn't happen. But that's a little down the road.
Well, that's like a terrifying chasm to look at. And I speak to a lot of people who are thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, for example, or starting something new, and the idea of completely like cutting ties but not having an answer exactly as to what's next, that's almost more terrifying than having something really exciting to look forward to, or having something really intimidating to look forward to. It's that you don't know-ness. And especially in today's society, when people, especially in the United States, they get so defined by their careers that it's almost like, hey, we're going to rip away your identity and good luck figuring out who you are.
Yeah. Like that was a struggle for me, because like I mentioned earlier, I didn't went to this since I was a junior in college. Like you ask acquaintances of mine, a junior since I was in high school. If you ask acquaintances of mine in college, they could tell you that James wanted to be a forensic scientist. Like that was my thing. I was known for that. And now I couldn't do it. I couldn't be that thing. Like, who am I? What am I? And like, what's my purpose? That was that was some some tough conversations that I had with myself in early 2017. But it was through those conversations that led me to where I am at and what I typically talk about, all my successes.
Yeah, that's so interesting to think about how we're so tied. Our identity is so tied to the thing that we do from, like quote unquote 9 to 5.
Right.
And like here you are with, this is your first job. You're setting out into the world. You've already bought a house and you're like, oh, yep, this is it. I'm just chugging along. And then boom. And you have truly that quarter life crisis where you have to like redefine your identity, and you don't know where to start.
Right. Yeah. It's like, what do I do? Because this was, as you mentioned, my identity for so long. And now what? So for the rest of majority of 2017, I spent trying to answer that question of what now.
So how did you do that? What kind of questions did you ask yourself? And like, where did you end up starting to kind of like redefine your identity and like lead to where you are now?
Yeah. So it was, okay, what am I doing? And what do I want to do? I'm 24. I was like, so when the Valentine's Day conversation was a month before my 24th birthday. Yeah. A month before my 24th birthday. So it's like, okay, now what? And just to go a little bit into the stuttering side of everything, stuttering for the longest time was the elephant in the room that everyone knew about, but no one really acknowledged. And so the early post-grad life, I got involved with a support group chapter, and became very involved in the stuttering advocacy movement. And around the same time all of this was happening in my 9 to 5, I was getting more into this the stuttering world. I spoke at like an open at a panel for that my chapter held, and I also guest lectured to the local universities fluency class. So I figured, so through those two things, I realized I like to talk about stuttering, which up until that point was the thing I did not want to talk about. And so I think it was like, okay, I like talking about this. Let me at least get my story out there and kind of, see what happens. So I could try, and if it doesn't work out, then I can say, at least I tried, as opposed to when I'm 50, looking back and saying, well, what if? So I was starting to do the writing thing and got my name out there and was doing a lot of writing, just trying to get my name out there and seeing what, if anything, would take off. So that was me answering my now what, was just spending time, writing and getting my name out there in the hopes that something could potentially, maybe, hopefully happen 5-10 years, down the line.
Wow. I first thing is applaud you for taking advantage of a situation that could be crushing and you turned it into something empowering.
Yeah.
And then part of me is like, that's very similar to what happened to me is, I got let go from a job and then I said, well, screw them. I'm going to start my own business. And I think maybe those types of crucibles are what we truly need to reach our potential. Stinks, but it has to happen.
Oh, exactly. Like if I don't experience what I experienced, we're not having this conversation. And I haven't done all the things I've done over the past, 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Straight up. Like
Without failures, there would be no successes. It's like the people who I think are failing are taking the risks to get to something, to get to like a better place that they envision for themselves. I relate to this because I too was fired from my first job. It was definitely not my dream job. It was more like my nightmare.
Yeah.
I was like, if I woke up in hell, I would be sitting in this office. And so what happened with my first failure is not my first, but that particular failure with my first job is it was that catalyst that I needed to buy the one-way ticket to Thailand to say, okay, because I wanted to travel. It was like I was scared of it. And then when I was left with, not a lot of options, I thought this is actually the best option, even though I don't know what the outcome will be. And honestly, it was the best decision that I made. And so it led to, a lot of other great things. But I'm curious to hear from you. What did this job catapult you into, or losing this job catapult you into?
So we had the Valentine's Day conversation, and then from that point until October 19th, I was just existing at my job, just kind of existing. Like had like a little bit of a social life, but I was also realizing that the city I was in wasn't a good fit for me either. Job wasn't a good fit. Only thing keeping me there was the house, but I wanted to keep the house just because like I bought it and then I flooded. And so I'd only been in the house for like 6 months total at this point.
You barely got a test drive in it.
Right. And so I was just like, this is rough, but I was afraid of like, if I sold my house and moved back to New Orleans, then I'd be failing, which I guess technically I did, but I'm glad it happened. And also during that time, I'm just, writing a lot. And the more I wrote, the more feedback I got, and it was all good feedback. And I realized that this was like summer of 17, that maybe one day, like 5-10 years down the line, I could write a book. And so I was just writing on my nights and weekends just to have something in case this book ever did happen, 5-10 years down the line. So that was like the new dream of like, let's get this book out there. So that's what I was doing summer of 2017. And then October 19th, then Thursday, October 19th, around 1 p.m. happened.
Very specific. Very specific.
It's one of those days you remember very vividly.
Yeah.
So leading up to it, I had this like gut feeling that I was forgetting something. Like a solid 2 weeks leading up to October 19th, I felt like something's going to happen on the 19th. Like, am I forgetting something? Is there a major agent that expires that I'm in charge of? Do I have a doctor's appointment? Like, is there a family thing going on? Like, what's going on October 19th? I would ask my friends, like, hey, is there anything major happening on that day? They're like, no, James, nothing's happening.
The cosmic feeling.
Right.
Oh,
I would
gosh.
ask I would ask my family members, do we have like a family event on the 19th that I'm forgetting about? Like, it's like, I was asking my parents, like, is insurance due? Like, what's going to happen? Something's happening on the 19th. October 19th arrives, and like the morning was fine. Go to lunch. I get back from lunch. I'm sitting at my desk, and my boss tells me the captain wants to see you, because where I worked at,
Captain.
it was with the state police. And so because of state police, we had to have a captain in the state police at our job at all times. So I was like, okay, do you know what this is about? She said, the captain wants to see you. It's like, okay. So I'm going down the long hallway, just trying to think, okay, what could it be? What could it be? What could it be? Walk into his office. I see him, and I see my boss's boss. I'm like, oh, this is what's happening on October 19th.
It's happening.
I'm about to get fired. Okay, cool. So I sit down at his desk. They gave me some spiel, which I don't really buy. Just, we can put that on the record. I don't care. It's been 4 years. And I said, okay, cool. I will give you my 2 weeks notice. So then I am escorted back to where I was working, clean out my desk real quick, tell everyone bye. Couldn't really tell them what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, what's going on? James, like, what's happening? Like, are you okay? I was like, I just got fired. And everyone was shocked and surprised.
Mm-hmm.
So I get fired. It's like 1:30 by this point, 1:30. It was a Thursday. Drive back to my house, and my parents were there that day because I was having some work done. So walk in and tell my parents, hey, mom and dad, I just got fired. Because that's a conversation you want to have with your parents.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. You want a little decompression time, but you went straight into, yeah.
Yeah. Because they're like, why are you here? Like, you get off at 3, right? It's like, yeah, I did, but I got fired. And they're like, what the heck? Are you okay? I was like, yeah. Like, I knew I was planning on leaving anyway. I had already started the process of putting my house up for sale, trying to look for jobs in the New Orleans area. So I was getting ready to leave. What just gets me 4 years later is that they beat me to the punch.
Yeah.
So I was looking forward to walk to my boss's office and say, this my letter of resignation. This my 2 weeks. See y'all later.
They tell you to go. Same thing. It's like, that's the thing that kills me. It's like, I just wish I was the one to decide my own fate rather than fate decided for me. But you know what? Our fates were decided.
Yeah.
And we moved on.
And I'm glad it happened. Like, getting fired from my dream job was like one of the best things ever. So I get fired, move out of my house, like a week and a half, 2 weeks later, move back in with mom and dad, who I have not lived with full time since high school. Yeah, that was a fun experience. And just kind of figure out, what am I doing now? I am 24 and unemployed. And my biggest decision of the day is like, what episode of ER do I want to watch today? Like, it's like that was what I was doing. And so I figured, okay, I have this idea for a book. Why not? Like,
why not? You already started writing it, basically.
Right. And why not? What's the worst that can happen? Worst case scenario, no one buys it, but I can say that I wrote a book, and it's a like fun fact about myself. Like best case scenario, I make a living off of this. I go on the Kelly Clarkson show, and all these amazing things happen. And so I figured, okay, let's do this. So I spent the next like 6 weeks or so just writing and editing and writing and editing and editing and editing and formatting, and released and self-published my book Monday, December 4th, 2017. 5-6 weeks later.
That's amazing. So when you were writing for your, like, before the actual book, were you writing on a blog? Like, what were you submitting, like articles, or what were you writing for yourself?
So I did have a blog, and I was writing a little bit for the Mighty and for the Stuttering Foundation of America. A couple of them picked up my pieces, and so that's where I was getting my feedback from. But now, since I've become an official blogger for the Stuttering Foundation, and I'm an official blogger for Stamma, which is the British Stammering Association. I've also presented at the National Stuttering Association's conference and the Australian Speakeasy Association's virtual conference back in October. Some of my stuff has been picked up by MSN and Yahoo. My book is like either required reading or recommended reading at about a dozen or so universities, guest lectured about a dozen universities. It's on the list of recommended resources from the Stuttering Foundation of America, Speech IRL, which is a big speech therapy organization in Chicago, and SAAU, which is the Stuttering Australian, the Stuttering Association for the Young in Australia.
Wow.
So I think I'm okay.
That's incredible. No, you're
okay.
good.
I think I'm okay.
Wait, no, that's incredible. Like, congrats to you for your successes. That's
Thank you.
awesome. And not a lot of people can do it, or a lot of people talk the talk and they don't walk the walk.
Yeah.
But let me ask you, how did the experience of failing at your first job, getting fired and not feeling good about it, how did that change you up to this point? Like, what's your biggest takeaway from that experience about yourself?
Yeah. So this is a poem that I wrote like 4 days after it happened, and I still have it on my notes. Can y'all see it's October 23rd, 2017?
Okay, so for everyone listening, he literally still has it on his phone, and he's like waving in front of the Zoom camera. I love this. Okay.
Just to confirm that this is 4 days later. So I forgot that I had this, and I was going through my phone recently after I agreed to do the podcast, and I found this, and I was like, wow, this answers the final question, because I was reading the media guide a couple of times. So, is it failure if we grow? Is it failure if we learn? Is it failure if we experience joy? Is it failure if we experience peace? Is it failure? One poem. Second poem. I'm learning that it's okay to not be okay. I'm learning that failure isn't always failure. I'm learning that joy can come from failure. I'm learning that peace can come from failure. I'm learning that failure will not define me, but I will define it. I'm learning.
Yeah, this is, oh my gosh. My like idea alert button in my head just went off at 90 to nothing. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm all
like choked up over here.
Yeah. And so that's, yeah. And I completely forgot that I had that. I was going through, I was like, wow, that's like really deep for being fired from your dream job, 4 days prior. But yeah, it's just, what is failure? Like, yes, on paper, I failed pretty epically getting fired from my dream job, but I'm so glad it happened. Like, does it suck? It sucked at the moment, but it's my beautiful failure. Like, if I don't fail and get fired, I'm not doing everything I just listed that 2-3 minutes ago.
Beautiful failure. Name of the podcast episode.
And being courageous to come here and share that with us, you're still narrativizing this story here, because you pulled up this relic in anticipation of our conversation. And it sounds like, years later, this is you planned this closure without planning it.
Yeah.
And it's literally poetic.
Literally poetic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of forgot I had this. I was just going through my stuff. It's like, wow. Yeah, this is how we're closing the podcast.
Yeah, we're putting this up in the show notes. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. That's great.
Wow. Well, so what's next for you?
What is next for me? That is a good question. So I like what I do, but I want to be more involved in the stuttering awareness and advocacy and try to bring it onto a corporate side. Because like as a patient and employee at pretty much at most jobs I've had negative experiences as an employee, and as a patient in the healthcare system, I've had negative experiences as a person who stutters. So trying to do stuff to better help our doctors and our nurses and everyone just better understand stuttering and to remove the stigma and the taboos associated with stuttering. Like stuttering isn't this like embarrassing thing that we need to be taboo and not talk about. It's just the way that I talk. It's just one of the things that make me uniquely me. And that's what I want to do. I want to be the person I needed when I was younger, someone who says it's okay to stutter. That's ultimately what I want to do, and why I do everything is to be the person that 10-year-old James needed.
Yeah. That's incredible. I think that so many people need to hear your story, not just people who stutter, but people who have this, thing that they're uncomfortable with. I know that you've gone through a journey of transformation to own it, and it's beautiful. And your journey of transformation. And so many people have some people have, things about them or the way that they think or the way they feel, the way they are, that they are still, trying to own, like you are, like courageously own and truly be okay with it.
Yeah.
And the idea is sometimes you have to give yourself permission to say, this is me. This is like how I am and, who I am on this earth. So like, what can I do to like contribute and be a great person and build relationships with other people and bring my unique gifts and qualities to make other people's lives better.
Yeah. That's what I want to do.
You're doing it.
You
trying.
You did it, and you're going to continue doing it.
I'm trying, y'all.
Hey,
thank you.
We've all been fired from a job.
And
And
if you haven't, you should try
cool.
it. You should try it if you have. If anyone's listening and they haven't been fired yet, you should really try it.
It sucks in the moment, but give yourself, 4 years. It could be the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the truth. It's usually for a reason, like, that you feel like you felt that struggle when you woke up that day. It was like that like internal, gut feeling is actually like your inside, like your brain, or your like, what is the word I'm looking for? Your subconscious, like, thank you. Your intuition, like giving you guidance, like giving you that guidance. And it's like, sometimes we don't listen to it, but it's always there for a reason to tell us something, to try to like give us that compass,
Preach.
Yeah.
So, preach. Well, this was a great conversation. Thank you so much, James, for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me. This was fun, y'all. And it was good to go behind the curtain.
James is just such a joy. And
he is a joy.
His story is, unique because it's him and it's his story. However, you and I both have similar stories of, getting fired, and which a lot of people do. And it, we all kind of grapple with it in different ways, which was fun to hear. was fun to hear about his pain and suffering. I'm kidding. But it was fun to hear his perspective of how he got through it and how he turned that, little blip, that little like wound into a catalyst for, some success and, continued success for his life.
And I'm curious, like thinking back that first morning that he woke up and said, this isn't working, this isn't clicking. Maybe that was his subconscious saying there's a part of your identity that you've been ignoring. And he even used the words. It's been the elephant in the room. And maybe that morning, some reason or another, the elephant in the room poked him. And he said, whoa, there's an elephant here. And then he just had to kind of like feel it and not acknowledge it until he was just kicked out of the room. And he said, and this elephant followed him. He was like, oh, yo, what's up, elephant? And, let me write a book about it. Oh my gosh, this elephant is going to take me places.
Yeah. The fact that he went to, to writing eventually, like when he had that realization and then conversation with his boss, and then he started writing as an outlet. And, I love to do that too. And I say, when in doubt, write it out, like get your thoughts out of your head and on paper. And that turned into something with a lot of feeling and a lot of depth that now he is using for like his success, using it as speaking engagements, using to help other people, using it to, help other people learn about stuttering and, his people like him. It makes his like output is making the world a more inclusive place.
Absolutely. And there's extra credit to be granted here is that he said his coping mechanism during those months in between was TV. And I think there are so many ways that we can just sink time into distractions like TV or video games or, all sorts of activities that are not generative. And that finally, when he had that Valentine's Day conversation, he turned sinking time and just coping into a generative process. That's the differentiation between him and so many other people who are told by their boss, hey, it's not going to work out. And instead sink into just kind of that inaction. And that takes guts. That takes guts to put it down on a page.
Yeah. Gosh, just making me really self-reflect and think about, things that I do, sometimes like, I think that for me, I'm almost the opposite. Like when I am, in the depths of like a struggle, sometimes I do too much. I like overdo things that are, maybe distracting or productive, like because it feels good to be productive and like check things off the list.
Well, you work out all the time. That's a good thing. That's maybe not generating like something that's going to last forever besides your body. But like it's still a healthy coping mechanism.
Yeah,
don't beat yourself up on that.
Well, maybe not just working out, but like, like laundry or write. Well, I do write in my journal a lot, but at some point it's kind of like, when do you take generative action, like you just said, And I also do, okay, so that's one side of the coin, but I do think the TV part that he mentioned, sometimes that's like the bridge to decompress. Maybe he needed that time to truly like just be still with himself, because internally he didn't realize that he was processing, but he really was processing the feelings and emotions that he was going through. And so before you use it and like be reflective and like thoughtful about this failure, this feeling, that you're this managing of your negative thoughts, how do you kind of like decompress and cope? And maybe it's a mindless activity, like playing words with friends on your phone or Word Crush or whatever, or watching television or getting lost in something that helps you get through that negative thought.
There's a balancing act though, and I know that I grapple with this balancing act, and it's giving myself permission to mentally check out, but then also knowing when has that line been crossed, that it's no longer being productive processing time, and instead it's it's hiding time. Because I think, there's certainly ways that I'd love to sit down, bang out a few video games and just be just like taking medicine. But the way that technology has advanced and the way these things are designed, they suck you in and they become so consuming that you don't actually step away and then move forward and actually recognize that the processing has happened. I don't know. I don't have an answer, Alicia. You got the world's smartest, most brilliant people given limitless resources to suck your attention away. Let's go delete Facebook.
It's a hard battle to fight. So I think it's just being self-aware, trying to be like, okay, let me give myself an hour to decompress and binge on Netflix, and then I'm going to move on to something else,
And write a book.
I got to get that book out.
Thanks to No BS Brass Band for the bangin' show music. Check them out at nobsbrass.com. And if you want to join any of our live shows, follow us on Facebook at the 2020 Perspective. That's 20/20 Perspective. As always, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast player so you can get the latest failures delivered right to your ears. And may your failures be spectacular.